let it know we have a quorum. We have Councilman Demick not present. He could not make it.
Work.
And he had work related and excused absence, I feel. But we do have a quorum. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First we received two SOQs for our water storage tank improvement road access engineering. We have Gores and Associates, and we have Y2 Consultants.
What? Yeah.
Y2 or
No, that there's
sewer, yeah. I forget.
Yeah, this was the one I didn't have.
Yeah, we only had three of them. I don't know what you did with your extra copy.
Yes.
Oh, EAS, excuse me,
Got it out of order.
EAS. There we go.
Yeah, I have
Got you covered.
Okay. Oh, God.
No, it's fine.
You have an extra copy of that? We only had three of them.
I have one extra copy of
That's
that.
all we need.
I got it.
Oh, you got it?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I got it.
Probably be helpful.
It's been a busy week for I've been in the College of Economics Summit all week. So I'm a little behind, and Chris and Kim was able to put this together.
And also I believe I sent you an email and briefed all the firms in attendance that since we're gonna do it in the council room, that as we interviewed one, we'd have the rest of the step
Yes,
out. So
correct.
Confidentiality.
Yes. So let's start with Gores and Associates. Mike, would you like to shut the door?
The others are not on this. This water tank, they have to leave, the other people, and they listen to the water tank presentation.
I guess theoretically, I don't see why they couldn't,
Okay, I'm just,
Right. They
because
have,
they're not impacted by it.
yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
The scoring sheets also, the metric is 1 to 5.
And we have to have it done by September, right?
Be in contract.
In contract with the construction company, so the project doesn't have to be done, but we have to be under contract for the construction work by its.
Oh, so on the metric, 5 high,
By high.
just
yeah,
clarification.
Yep, and this was the last one we used last time, that agreed upon multipliers for the different categories.
so we're consistent with what we've just been doing.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim.
Oh, that's fine. We're happy to be here. To say the least. Thanks all of you. First of all, which of the two proposals were you on?
We're looking at the water storage tank and road access.
Okay,
Could you please introduce yourself? For the record, we all know who you are, but
be glad to. even though all of you know me.
Yes.
All right, yes,
On.
I'm Jim Gores. We have with us this afternoon or this evening, Jeff Deedy, I think all of you know Jeff. And, so we're here to discuss the water tank road and access and the tank itself and what might need to be done with it. The key here is that the project is to be under contract and execute construction contract by September 20th. Got that correct? Is that what you're thinking, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's quite a bit to be done between now and then. We need to get we've got a tentative timeline as we see from the information Jeff handed you. We want to have the contract under contract for the engineering services, obviously as soon as possible. Then we'll start in on or work further on surveying and base maps, 30% design, the 70% design, 95% design, and final design and invitations out to bid by about the end of July. There's a lot to be done between now and then. And then begin bidding early August and have the construction contract under signed and with notice to proceed and executed by September 20th. So, any questions or comments on that?
So I guess that gives, Jim,
Yes.
I guess that gives us approximately gives us 3 weeks to negotiate the contract with the potential obvious low bidder and
Yeah.
to make sure all of his documentation
Yes.
is everything is up to snuff.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
and-
we will review those contracts and make a recommendation and notice of award, so forth, as you're familiar with the past, how we handle construction contracts. But yes, that'll be thoroughly reviewed, and we will find out anything at all that, okay.
What you're saying that you have the contractor vetted before you make
Before you award.
before you make the award, that they are vetted and everything, so we don't have to worry about none of that when we're over and doing is going over it if we have any issues with the price.
Yeah. Yes, and we'll make an analysis of how
Right.
the various bidders compare.
Yes.
And make a recommendation to you based on what we find by evaluating the bid.
Okay.
Of course, that's toward the end of the process, not toward the first. So our effort is to get the design contract for our services with anticipated date of May 7th, which is not far away, to say the least.
If we. Yeah, that gives us. Yeah, less than a month, but we know that. I think that's doable. Have any opinion on that, Mike?
So,
This, what, Jim has Gorse Associates provided us with their timeline, everything,
Yeah, just that,
anything. Look
the 3
reasonable?
weeks is kind of short. But
Yeah,
if he's gonna review it, I guess,
yeah, that was that was why I was trying to bring that up, because if it's everything's vetted,
yeah,
we
Yeah. And that'll all be in our scope of work, which is yet to be really negotiated, but, and we wanna, on this project, well, and also the next, we wanna work very closely with you folks and making sure what we're embarking on is what you wanna see and end up where you wanna see everything end up with executed contracts by September 20th.
And if we can come, we may be able to come to agreement before May 7th with
Yeah,
you.
potentially, yes. Because we got most of that, already kind of lined out in the proposal, which I think all of you have seen.
Yeah, you did the level 1 study that
Yeah,
brought this
yeah,
to bid,
so we're-
correct?
Yes. And we're very familiar with tank site, the access road and the difficulties of getting to the tank. We want that to be safe, obviously, for all weather access. And we've identified the needs of the tank and as well as the access road, I think. We're going to have that tank access, well, a site flown with an aerial drone to get you topo so we can get that road set at a grade that is all weather access safe and which is now in question, I would say. Anything, Jeff, that you want to add to that? Okay. So. The site, I think we will. There's not a lot we can do with it, but there's some improvements that need to be made up there. Well, and before we get into that, you've got the access road is on combination of both BLM and reservation ground, to the best we know. That needs to check and any questions on that resolved. I believe that both wells 5 and 6 are positioned where they are to get them on the BLM and off of any other competing lands. So, and then once we get an aerial view of the site, which includes the access road, we'll be in a position to get the design done with that. And so we're gonna review that with you folks by June 4th and with the preliminary design to figure out if there's route changes that need to be made there and what sort of grade adjustments we need to be able to get that thing to where it's really all weather access. And then up to the tank is a whole different set of issues.
Sure.
We looked at there. That fence around that tank, as everybody knows, is pretty poor shape. That's not the most important thing by any means, but we need to get that vault, that communications vault, SCADA vault, whatever you want to call it, where it is frost-free year-round. Right now, I don't know that it is or that it isn't. Certainly a freeze protection there, and that is a confined space,
Right.
which needs to be addressed. And all of those things are listed in our proposal, so I won't bore you with the other aspects. And I'm glad to discuss anything that you'd like to go over. But again, the target is getting that under construction at least, have the contractor selected and you're ready to issue notice to proceed by August 30th. Because of the funding constraints that are attached to that.
Do understand if we're not under contract by September 20th, that we lose our funding.
That potential exists, yeah.
Yeah, if we're not, that's what our contract with the state says.
Yeah,
If we do not,
and we want to hit that target. I know you do too.
would you have any problem signing a contract that says that by any fault of yours, we don't reach that target, that you'd not bill us for anything we're done?
I don't know, because there's value to it as you go along, but our objective is to get it out by the date that doesn't leave any of your funding or anything else to risk. And
What I'm saying, if it was any fault of yours, if we did not, if it's the fault lies on us, that you should, but if the fault lies on Gores and Associates, we lose the whole funding.
yeah, I think, well, that may be negotiable. What I'm thinking, perhaps the funding agencies and over else before you
Well, yeah,
make to those that dress.
but if we lost, but if we were to lose funding,
Yeah, it's something that's proven to be our fault. That's
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If it's our fault, it's,
well,
you
there's
know
a
what I
lot
mean?
of
You shouldn't be held liable for something that we done or
Sure.
not. Right, that's what I'm getting. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
there's-
worried about asking about timeline and if you're comfortable with it,
yeah,
because that's where we're at. And where we're at now is not Gores and Associates' fault,
yeah.
but we're being open with it. This is where we're
That's
at.
future potential.
Yeah, and we need in a timely manner, be able to get this done. Is council
Yeah.
feel similar?
And that hinges on things like DEQ's response time and reviews and so forth. So we're not the only player here. And neither is the town. So
Do you foresee that we have an issue with anything with DEQ on this? One thing I know, we need to get a document signed by the Bureau of Land Management, but with basically what was in the original design, that's not we're not doing any substantial changes to that, on what we're doing. We're moving some dirt, do a fence. That's the local office can handle that real easily. That I'm aware of, but is there something I'm not aware of the DEQ that might cause us issues?
no, and I don't want to try and outguess what
Okay,
they may come up with. So
Okay.
that's why I'm not being yes or no answer.
okay.
What about the tribe?
I'm seeing,
What about the tribe? We've talked about DEQ, we've talked about BLM. Will there be any issues with permission from the
we
tribe?
don't necessarily foresee it.
We're not
There's
on
gotta be some-
reservation.
I thought, I was just told that, but we have to contact both the tribe
We don't,
and BLM.
we're not on Bureau of Land. We're not on tribe land. We're on BLM.
Is the whole thing on tribe or is any on
The
tribe?
access for some of the access road that's in
It's-
question, bottom end down just beyond well 6. I don't think there is any, I believe there's documentation says you have a right of way there, but what our concern is, we don't want to initiate a contract that's not on your property or place where you have a right to be. So, all I'm saying, we want to be cautious. That'd be a mess to have a contractor starting out on something And
Is that, has a survey or something indicated to you that we're on the reservation? To my knowledge, everything's on BLM.
I believe you're right. But in all
I mean,
fairness,
that's my knowledge, looking at the maps.
yeah, and I believe that's right,
Oh, okay,
but I don't wanna make a big issue out
Okay,
of something
yeah,
that
yeah.
isn't.
yeah,
But I don't wanna pass up
Sure.
a snag that none of us wanna be in,
correct.
so. Any questions on that? Definitely, we want,
I was just gonna say, sorry, I'm Jackie, just.
Thank you, thank you.
Apologize, but not doing this soon. I just wanted to point out that as long as we stay in the existing right of way, things should proceed fairly quickly. And the only thing the DEQ would have, basically any control over is if there are any modifications to the tank, like, adding a proper discharge for the overflow. Or putting on a railing around the top, any changes to the physical tank, that's what DEQ would have any sort of say.
Okay,
yeah, but, I think that's the only thing we see where they would have some sort of problem. Would cause them to question the design.
okay,
Well, we need to correct the air gap. Situation
Correct.
there on the
Yes.
overflow and
Yeah,
all sorts of little details that maybe you're right the first time, not the second time.
right. We, the main thing is get it under contract.
Yeah.
That's what,
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
our, there may be some of the stuff, if we need to negotiate, doesn't prevent us from getting it under contract.
Yeah,
That be a good assumption, or am I wrong?
well, I think that's correct.
that would be correct, as long as they understood certain portions would not be able to be conducted
if-
until
Right,
DEQ or, yes.
there's a chance that,
I kind of had a similar situation with the sewer line too. While we were under contract, we had things that we couldn't proceed on.
right, correct,
But we were already under contract.
right,
Could
we
proceed.
sorted all that out, so, yeah, see, I don't, yeah, that doesn't seem, I don't think it causes an issue.
I don't think so.
We don't want to stand up here and tell you that we got it figured out smooth sailing.
Well, no, I appreciate you bringing out the devil's advocate for potential hurdles we could have in the future. Yes. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Things don't always run as smooth as you want.
How are you foreseeing oversight during construction?
Could be one of the two of us, probably.
But okay, that'll be there
Yeah,
most of the time, or what's your time? What's your deal?
So that, I would say that could be negotiated. It depends on what the town sees as how much they want to pay for it. As in addition to what sort of commitment, if you want to pay for someone to be there 24/7. We're willing to provide that, but
Okay, that
that is,
you can provide that.
yes,
If we-
yes, we can.
Or
So-
that out if we're working day and night, but 24/7, but we may, there's some things, I guess, to kick around. It's maybe not quite as important as burying it underground where you can't see, but
Yeah.
there is definitely quality control that an engineer could provide, make sure the contractor is doing the right compaction, everything else on this road to make sure we get a good road.
Right.
well,
So,
anything that involves, density testing.
Right.
So forth, we'll be using not our stalls and our equipment, but we'll be using inverter motors.
right, a third party, correct, understand that,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, those are things we need to, okay, very good, thank you. Anybody have any other questions?
Not really. But we don't want to be unnecessarily vague, but we don't want to say, yes, we'll definitely have it. Well,
No, I appreciate your honesty and bringing up what you see potential issues.
yeah. That's what we're saying. All right, we're be happy to answer any questions you got.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think you
pretty much covered that for me.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Fairly familiar with this.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Thank you for your time. We will let, yes, no,
and then after them, I think then we can deliberate on the scoring and then, you know, if you want to get them out of here and go to the next one, or you want to do it all at the end.
It's,
Be easier to finish one project at a
Yeah.
time.
yeah, I
Stay
think so.
focused so we don't.
I think so.
That's why I figured, it's like,
Right.
Doesn't matter what.
You have EAS?
Right?
Yeah.
we'll just be out there.
Maybe this, the accident.
Okay.
Okay,
Whatever.
we didn't want you to come back anyway, but.
We'd be happy to address any questions that Mike has. He's there to be part of the team too. It's like all you boys.
Okay. To get that gate.
Maybe
drive up
they-
and-
It's not good.
This is Chris, that's the outline. See, and it's-
I don't look in our easements. We got an easement across the res down
I would-
further, but I don't.
But I'm
I
just
don't,
saying it
I don't
does.
remember
I-
seeing one there.
It does, the road does.
So as long as you stay within the easement, it should be okay.
Why, ready to go.
That's what it was intended for.
Yeah.
Hello. How are y'all?
Hungry.
Hungry? I'll make it
Please
short.
introduce yourself.
So I'm Lisa with Engineering Associates. I am the Riverton office manager for this area. My team that we're proposing on this project is primarily my coworkers out of Demopolis as well. They couldn't be here tonight. They both all had to leave town or whatever. So you get me. That's who you get talk to, but just a little background on Engineering Associates. We're a Wyoming-based firm with our corporate office in Cody. We've got offices in Cody, Powell, Demopolis, Sheridan, Sundance, Saratoga, Laramie, Riverton, and Casper. Yeah. So we're all over. We specialize in engineering, a lot of times municipal engineering, including surveying and material testing. We have a office, or we have a material testing lab in Cody, so we can pull proctors and test our dirt in the Cody office or in the Saratoga office. And we offer our surveying services out of every office, and we have nuclear density testing at every office. So that's a little background on Engineering Associates. We've been in business for 6 years, and we've been the acting town engineer for the town of Demopolis since 1975. And that's where the majority of my experience comes from, is working with the town of Demopolis crews and then water system, So that is the same for my proposed project team. Keith Overfield is the town engineer for Demopolis, has been for probably about 20 years now. Anthony Barnett out of that office also acts as town engineer. And we help the town a lot with a lot of the problems that I think this project will be addressing for you guys. We do a lot of assistance on sanitary sewer, meeting those requirements from the sanitary sewer and keeping the water system going.
You're aware of we're not your fault, sorry, but we're up against a timeline.
I am aware, yeah.
Yeah, but we have to have it under contract by September 20th.
30th.
30th, is it 30th? Oh, 30th,
30th is the deadline.
Okay.
Yeah. For us.
or we lose funding.
project, your manual said it'd be, your proposal would be June 30th. Or under contract.
Well, that was before I learned you were under attack. So,
Explain that, the difference now.
well, it just means that we won't be, taking the summer to analyze the terrain because they're on the road. The way, I do think that we can meet your timeline. I would have some questions because there's certain things that I've not seen, like your easements for your road.
Okay.
I know a big portion of your project is addressing, making that road better. So if there's issues with your easements, that may be a time issue, depending on if there's negotiations that have to happen with the owners of that property. But assuming that your easements are at least decently in place or allow for expansion of your road, we could move pretty quickly.
Yeah, we gotta have to make sure I don't know if we can expand on making the road any wider. We may have to stay in our existing easement. I do not, in fact, I cannot find the part that's on the BLM, haven't found the lease. BLM hadn't found the lease on that property. I don't know what they don't know. The last time with the Lander office could not find it. I could not find a copy of it in town hall.
Okay. So we can help find that
But-
if it's existing.
Yeah, well, I'll be talking with BLM next week. We'll be trying to sort that out for sure.
Sure. So in my understanding for your project needs, you're looking to make that passable year round. And it looks
Yes.
to be a 2-track right now.
Yeah.
So assuming that you can't, let's say you can't widen it at all, I don't think that's necessarily an issue.
Yeah,
We'll just work to build it up
build
in
it
the
up.
condition, within the limits here.
Sure.
It's just dependent on what your wants and needs are for it, but
Yeah,
you know, putting down road base and
right.
you know, getting it down correctly as opposed to a 2-track will accomplish what you're looking for in terms of making it accessible.
It's Mike, what do you, the road, the real biggest issue is going up the hill, correct?
The grade.
Yeah, well, that one is kind of steep that goes straight up,
Yeah,
then that one that goes around is kind of, it's got a lot of big boulders sticking out of it.
So there's
Sandstone boulders, so kind of rocky ride.
Sure,
The other one is kind of pretty straight up. That's when you get to the top of the thing. It's fairly narrow.
I don't know. If
And then a lot of times the boulders fall off,
So yeah, some rock
issues.
rock issues would have to be addressed, so that's still gonna be a little bit dependent on what your easement allows, but, you know, the BLM might be willing to work with us if we propose something.
yes, if we don't widen it, if we don't deviate, I've dealt with them, if we don't deviate much. It can be handled simply in-house in Lander.
Sure,
If we get too much of a deviation, it gets out of it might have to get out of Lander, get out of their, what they can authorize, and that adds a little time to it.
Yeah.
But if that's, but if we don't do a lot of changing, my past experience of BLM's went relatively well.
yeah, so I mean, we can work with you in terms of trying to keep that as.
And
passable
try to
as
keep it
possible.
where we get do a good job and keep it streamlined, anything that won't upset. Where they think they have to stay within what they can authorize in the Lander office, field office. Or can do it relatively quick out of the Casper office.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen the water tank in Demopolis, that's in State Park. up
yes,
above
I've
the-
seen it, yes,
above the pools, yeah, the old public works director, we used to talk about there to be a mountain goat to get up to that thing. So it's very similar to the.
Right.
While you're all things being equal, fairly confident that September 30th, at least be under contract, would be attainable.
I think so, like I said, the easements, if, as long as we are all have the same understanding of what we need to do to keep it within the land office and not send it further up the
Sure.
chain than it needs to go, that should move fairly quickly. DEQ would be the other thing, trying to get the.
That was my next question.
So, knowing now that James Ruff is not at the DEQ, maybe I'll have a better understanding who to send it to. But I think we can still work with that. It's from your master plan, which is where I got my information from this. You're looking to replace that vault, right? To address some safety issues, particularly that vault. Shouldn't be too upsetting, also to the DEQ. And, you know, worst case scenario, if it came to it, we could still put your project out to bid while it was being reviewed by the DEQ.
Okay.
But I don't think that that's gonna be strictly necessary. I think it should go. But yes, we should be able to get it. We can do it concurrently if your needs to get it out to bid are higher than the risk of change. That would be the one thing, is if they had huge changes that we needed to make, we would have the risk of change.
Which we could deal with.
I was gonna say, I can deal with that.
It should,
One change order.
Yeah.
That's the limit, yeah.
when,
gonna
when,
say.
you know, when,
Most people aren't that nice about it, but okay.
but it's, yeah, it's. And
But it shouldn't be, like I said, as long as my understanding of what you're trying to do is correct and you're not reconfiguring your entire situation up there. And even if you were, it's still one vault, it's still localized, it's not, you know, you're not doing a whole water project for your town, they're not checking everything that they usually do check, so I still think that we could nag them enough to get them. And then my other thought in terms of how I would try to do this quickly, especially when it comes to the road design, is we have a survey drone in Cody
yes, okay,
that I would look at as an option for doing the topo, and it might speed you things quite a bit. Even if we aren't able to do that, maybe because of the rock, if it just couldn't get to the accuracy I needed for that rock. We still have the survey capabilities in both of our offices, local offices here,
sure.
to be able to get out there and get GPS topo.
Well, so what would be your estimate that we would be ready to put it out for bid? You know, timeline, when do you think we'd be ready to get it to a contract? For bid.
What my timeline would be?
What would be what's your estimate is for a timeline, because
So, assuming like, what I heard is if you got, notice to proceed as of tonight. I think that we could plan on having the survey portion scheduled within, 2 to 3 weeks. Depending on whether, someone from Cody would need to come down. And then from there, design, it still kind of depends on what you insist on in terms of what changes we make to that road, or what changes we make to your vault, or.
we could take the lead on talking with the BLM and try to straighten that up for you.
Okay.
On our end, would take care of I think we could take care of
At
our
least
right
give it a
away.
jump start.
Huh?
At least give it a jump start.
Yeah, we could give it a jump start and try to
Get us the
get
documents.
working with BLM, yeah, on the right of way, and it appears we may have some land on reservation also, the road circles through part of the reservation. My law. So, but in any event,
Do you
so,
know anything about your easement on there?
no, I don't, and I actually looked at a map recently and I didn't see an easement pull up. I looked we have some easements on reservation land. For our original property, but I didn't think that followed that road. I did see we do have some easements that was granted, I don't know when.
Right.
But
Oh, some of that might depend in terms of your schedule, you know, depending on how, I'll just say, I think the BLM might be easier to deal with if you need a new, easement.
right,
So, if that's the case and working, on that portion of the road becomes too difficult, maybe we propose
right,
rerouting.
correct. And there's, I just can't believe they built that without an easement, but that's something I don't have knowledge.
Right,
And like I said, BLM could not find our lease we're on BLM land up there. They could not find our lease. And
I'd
we
say
couldn't
it's-
find it. We know we got one, I'm sure. We didn't
Yeah.
build it without one,
right, you probably had one to begin with.
Yeah. so,
So that would be like my biggest concern in terms of the time,
Yes.
but you know, there's just things we can try to do to help you out.
sure,
But it is entirely dependent on how, what you have, what your actual documents in place say. And how willing they are to work with you. if it's
Right.
not What it needs to be.
Yeah,
So I'm not gonna promise that
Sure.
I can do it. We can try really hard, but if those agencies, stall us, then all we can do is nag. I'm pretty good at nagging though, so, you know, I can do it if I need to.
so. So. Surveying. Could probably start. We come into agreement, we may have to. Take a week or so for us to negotiate our contract.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
or
Let's-
something.
I would say under a month we can have
Let's
something.
start surveying.
And the survey shouldn't take much, I don't think. I know, I looked, at a section corner relative to your area, you're pretty close there, you know, so. I think setting up control and that would be pretty simple.
Sure,
So I don't think the actual survey portion of it will take too particularly long, and we have enough, manpower to get on it right away, even if we don't wait for the drone, but I think, as far as I'm aware, the drone. I don't think there's a wait list months long for that drone right now,
Mhm.
so, I think we could get on that within the month after. Have it completed, within a month and a half after, getting an agreement, yeah.
so. Do you have enough that? Again, what do you think, cause. To get it out for bid, cause we gotta. Put it out for bid, advertise it, blah, 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 but. Where do you think we would fall in that?
So what's your funding source? Cause some of that dictates how much you advertise.
So it's actually ARPA.
So, being as it's April, I think that we can have the survey done for sure before June. I think that we can be designing it. I think that between June and July, we can have it completed. And we can start advertising end of July or in August.
Okay,
That would be my goal. Assuming that your easements don't.
right,
tear me up.
if we, if. If no fault of us, but if you. Cannot perform. If to meet the timeline, it's personnel, someone gets sick, any reason that would prevent, that keeps us. This doesn't mean. Right away, stuff that's our responsibility that does not, we don't. If it's our fault, it can't blame you, but if we lose our funding. And because of fault of you. Would you agree to not accept payment for it if it's your fault if you can't, not if it's your fault, not our fault.
I think so. It's hard to speak. On
Yeah,
behalf
you
of
might,
the
something you wanna
company.
bounce around, but that would be
I'll
something,
confirm that.
but obviously, yeah, I mean, if we have issues, we can't, if it's up, if we
Not
can't.
the
get-
EPA, not
Yeah.
the BLM,
Yeah.
not
if it's
the,
because we-
just you.
Yeah.
Just you.
You're on
Did-
COVID, you can't work.
Okay. Like I said, I would have to confirm one way or the other
Okay.
with somebody who maybe higher up on that than me. I will tell you that with our different offices, we have quite a few resources.
You have quite a bit of
available to us.
personnel, yes,
So, you know, even if I drop off base tomorrow.
right,
There's 2 people in Thermopolis that are committed to getting it done anyway. I've got surveyors in Cody that know about it and, will be able to take over some of that. I've got drafters, including in our new Casper office, that would be able to help us with the drafting, so. While I can't, you know, promise, what my company would do in that, event, I can tell you that we have a lot of resources available to us that would, help. So, I wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily be here if I had concerns about
Sure.
not being able to do it.
right, yeah, you got enough depth on your bench if we're looking at a football or basketball team.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
fill in, if you have an
Yeah.
injury,
I'm the only one here on Friday at 6 PM, I'll admit,
you're right,
but I'm not the only one,
okay,
in
very
my
good. Any other questions? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Do,
A few minutes. I got.
should we pass all the scores down to Chris?
I got it pulled up so I can go enter all this in and get the
Okay.
score check.
You just passed everything down there, Chris.
On my scorecard.
If I had pen,
I could fill one in.
change it because I'm thinking again.
1 to 5 is the score next.
Yep.
5 being 9. 1 being 9. I gotta go to.
Use the bathroom.
If you really need the scores. You can everyone.
I told him today we
Look at that.
What's best?
Those are the new ones.
What's after that presentation?
What?
No, that's just one thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm aware. So.
I read most of theirs. Seems good.
There, you get yours, Mike?
Huh.
There, you get yours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I do. Want me to give you fractions?
No.
Thank you.
My numbers are over this side, I'm way far.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
So you bring treats tonight? Bring treats tonight?
Did I bring what?
Treats, snacks?
No,
Cigarettes?
Nope. It's been 35 days.
We're gonna get you one of those little tokens that you give an AA.
Yeah. I ate a lot of ice. Yeah, it's rough to do after I smoked for 40 years.
Yeah. I've tried it when I was in high school and worked at a gas station. Everybody there smoked. I've tried it. I just. No, just not for me.
right? Now I notice, the smells of it. My workers walk by me and I'm like, wow, man, don't put your coat by mine.
Yeah. I've tried. Growing up, I tried. Cigarettes, chew, I hated chew.
Ugh.
Been a bus driver here. It was that one, he was in Lysite. She chewed all the time, just,
Oh, I have some girls that come through, cowboy girls, and they have big old,
yeah.
it's like, ugh.
I was coming home from Logan one day with a kid. We stopped at a little gas station in Cameron. This two cute girls got out. My son just looked out and they go, "They're not bad." And they took their chew and threw it around. He just shook his head. Wow. Nope,
Yeah,
not for me.
yeah. It was a nice day today.
It was. Worked in my garden this morning, like. I got garlic coming up.
Well, right on. I gotta work in my flower beds to get them cleaned up. It's my objective for tomorrow.
Well, they're fairly well cleaned up. I'm having. My wild roses are starting to leaf out.
I cut mine all down. So now they'll come back with a vengeance.
I'm getting blossoms on my apricot tree. I'm afraid they're freeze off. Next week, I heard it's supposed to get cold down the 20s on a whole.
I know.
Lilacs ready to bud out. That's about it. My advice. Oh, irises are starting to pop up.
Yeah, mine are in my flower bed, so I gotta get it cleaned up.
Bulbs are coming up, other bulbs. Tulips, whatever. Oh, I'm still alive. I've seen it that way. Oh, no,
So you're allergic to hay then?
Mhm.
What kind of grass hay,
Any.
alfalfa hay?
Any
How do you mow the yard?
Benadryl,
Well, just figure I'm always covered in hay.
hay just bothers me the worst.
Well, so, okay, so I pretty much always change my clothes on the way. I stop by the house on meetings. But like today, I just
It's
changed
alright.
in the parking lot. So
I'm used to it at work. I can tell when somebody's cutting hay. I walk in, my eyes start watering, I'm sneezing.
because
Like,
it's
"You cutting hay today, huh?"
we're just starting to get some grasses come up, but I'm still haying
Right?
the goats, the horses, the cows.
The
Push
baby
you.
goats are too cute, you have.
Are you done with your kidding?
No, we're still waiting on little L.
When's that gonna happen first of?
I don't know. So we do the let the goats be goats breeding program. And we just keep an eye on them and monitor them, and then we got kidding pens up there by the house.
I see those.
And so, and we got some bottle babies in there right now, and a bottle calf. And we just keep a close eye on them, and when they look like they're ready to go, we drag them up there and got the totes with the heaters in them and all that business. Which we don't need the heaters now, but it was handy in November and January. And yeah, little L hasn't dropped yet, and that's it. I think everybody else who's gonna has.
Lots of twins.
Yeah, they've all been twins. A handful of triplets, but they're meat goats, and I don't know. I don't know if it's because they're meat goats, but we've been losing one of the triplets. Like they're smaller
Yeah.
and can't, and we're there and we're trying to bottle, but we just, or when they're stillborn, we just have not done well with triplets. I don't think we've had any singles.
That's good.
Milkshake had triplets, and the one triplet that was teeny and stuff, I saved her. And in the meanwhile, we lost the other two I left with her. Just that was a tough one. Hate losing any of them.
Yeah,
They're too dang cute. You know why goats die? Because they can. Spend their whole life trying to.
yeah.
Sold off a handful of them earlier this spring.
Where are you selling for meat, the market for that? I mean, where do you get it butchered or you?
Oh, and also, like Princess, we sold her to a gal who was wanting one, and then Cookie, we traded her to Terry Hayes. He has a just gazillion goats.
I knew that.
Traded her for a real nice milk stand at about a $200 value. And then there's three more we sold to some local people that live out at Lyside that are wanting to raise them. We'll send a bunch to market down to Fort Collins usually.
Well, I know that. Meat plant up on top of the hill by. Airport. Was sold, I knew they were cutting up, they would butcher goats.
We just sell them live.
Okay,
And the other thing, I got a friend, he's doing it with his cows, he's doing cost sharing. Or if you want to buy half a beef from him, you buy half that cow alive. And then it doesn't have to be USDA processed because it's your cow that you're getting processed.
I'm into that.
Yeah. I said, I asked him, is there a tax break or what's the deal on selling the cow to, you don't have to do nothing with it. You just own it before it's ready to butcher. He said it's because of that processing. So you don't have to find a USDA. I mean, obviously you still want a good meat plant, but it circumvents a lot of the regulations if you're butchering your cow for you. So buy it before it's ready to go.
Makes sense.
Rabbits have been going crazy.
After you got tail printed on a yard.
Those aren't real legal to sell. Yeah, we sold everything we had, and like another dozen that are weaning this weekend, and another 30 that were born 2 days ago. And just as fast as we can produce them, they're really going fast.
So just who buys them?
Yeah, lots of people, about anybody. Some of them we sell processed up. 2019 they did the farm to table bill. Rabbits is included. We can process them right there and sell them as meat. Rabbits, chickens, a few things like that. So we do that.
About finished process. What's the price on this?
$7.50 a pound. So thereabouts, it comes like $22.
Should we-
Like, hey,
Should we call them both in and?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yours. Yes.
There you go, those. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's average.
So who's going first?
Well, just, we, we have a scoring matrix where we all voted independently, after reviewing the proposal and your presentation. It was a relatively close scoring, but EIS had the highest score. So we'll try to negotiate a contract. And as always, if we can't come to a contract, we will turn to the next highest. But we'll try to negotiate a contract. So that's what we need to start doing Monday. We got a tight time limit. And I appreciate both of you for coming. Like I said, it was not, like I said, the scoring was very close. It was a tough decision by this group. But everybody scored independently and then we compiled the scoring. So anyway, well, thank you.
Do we need to make a
We need a
motion?
motion to that effect?
Yeah, we can make a motion. If someone wants to bring one.
I'd make a motion that the town negotiates a contract with EAS on the water tank road access engineering.
And I'll second that.
Been moved by Councilman Stadler, second by Councilman Hartke, that we start negotiations with EIS
Or EA.
EAS
EA,
for the water tank and road access to the town of Shoshoni. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Proves the same. Again. Motion passed, only affirmative. Thank you.
All right, well, I look forward to working with y'all and.
Okay, very good, thank you.
We're only 4 minutes behind schedule.
Or 12, that's not bad.
The schedule? Fine.
Uh. We start with HDR.
Here we hear on this. Shoshoni and fire. I was smart because I have my computer. Logged into the Zoom meeting. I wasn't sure I was gonna go first, so I was worried my battery was gonna die.
Yeah, plugins.
I know. How's everybody doing on this fine evening?
Yeah.
Nice day today, sure. Well, I will need your Wi-Fi password. And the right Wi-Fi to log into. If you got one. Assuming it's the kind of you guessed.
Good luck, they wouldn't even give it to me, so.
Maybe there's a reason for that.
Good chance of that.
Well.
Is it the secured two? Looks like we're good to go. Then.
You can join the meeting on, make use of the
Okay, sounds good. Let's see. All right. All right. Wow, it's weird to see the back of my head. I guess we don't need the audio here, so.
Now the host.
Okay. So I can share my screen here. And get this presentation pulled up here.
Sure.
Start the slideshow here. Oops. There we go. All right, well, I'm Kyle Lato, HDR Engineering. I'm sure hopefully most of you know me. I am happy to be here and looking forward to being able to present on this project. We've had kind of a long history with the town, so I'm looking forward to this sewer lagoon PER. We're going to start out just giving everybody wish I could get rid of that thing there. Let's see. I'm going to start out just giving an understanding and background, kind of give some of our history with the town, let you know what we've kind of been involved with over the years and just our understanding of how things kind of shook out. And maybe give a little background on why maybe we are where we are right now. And I'll give you a project approach. I've got some considerations for the scope and budget, and then we'll talk a little bit about our PR experience in Wyoming. So to kind of start out with on this project, we weren't involved in 2000, but that's when the reclassification of Poison Creek happened. They took it from a class, I think it was a 3C water to 2AB water, and when they did that, it caused a whole lot of issues. And when I mean I mean DEQ went ahead and did that. They decided that sandy creek bed down there was a fishery, and decided that they needed to do something about it. And at the time, just a little background, the DEQ is kind of pushing a lot of people towards non-discharging systems, and there's reasons for that. Some of it has to do with they were worried about more stringent EPA guidelines and different things, but I kind of don't scratch my head and wonder if this was just the first step in a series of events that kind of led to where we're at. So based on that, they kind of started talking with the town about, hey, well, since we reclassified this, now you have a more stringent regulations on what your effluent is, the water coming out that you're dumping down into Poison Creek, and it's putting your discharge permit at risk. And so when they did that, there was an engineering firm that the town hired and was working with to come up with a solution. And that solution, they did some studies and did investigation, came up with this idea for a non-discharging evaporative lagoon in that big area next to the current lagoons. And so that's about the time when that project was kicking off for bid, when HDR started, we were Stetson at the time, started coming to council meetings and getting more interested in the town. And I just showed an interest, wanted to start showing up, sitting in the seats and listening to what was going on. And there were some sewer projects and different things going on. And anyways, when this project was kicking off for bid, there was some oddball things that kind of happened with that bid letting, where the firm was kind of doing some things that maybe they shouldn't have been doing. And basically the bids came in higher than was expected. And so instead of talking to the like lowest bidder, they jumped them and started talking to second lowest bidder, and then came back to council and said, oh, well, we've done some engineering evaluations, and they said they could make this cheaper. And anyways, at that point, the council and mayor were just kind of scratching their heads, worrying about a lawsuit because you're not going with the lowest bidder. And so what ended up happening was they just threw out all the bids and kind of decided to maybe take a step back and have somebody else take a look at the project. And so that's kind of when we got involved. And so that kind of sparked investigation that we did. We wrote a letter. That's what that is a letter from April 23rd, 2013 that I helped write with one of our wastewater experts. And so there's three things we looked at. One of them was, can we reclassify the stream back to what it was? The next one was, well, what's it actually going to take to make these plans usable and get that project bid out again? And then the third option, which was being pushed by a certain person in DEQ, was a pressure dosing system. So we looked at all three of those options, gave reasons for, what's what. And with the reclassification, it seemed like a good idea, but unfortunately, it wasn't the recommendation we went with, because we were concerned that eventually they may make it more. First, it was going to be hard. Might have been litigated for a while to fight with the DQ, and then second of all, in the end, if EPA comes in, makes more stringent stuff, maybe that makes it a tough sell anyways, even if you did get it reclassified. So we looked at we gave some cost estimates and looked at some issues and problems with the sewer lagoon. They were going to use the existing dirt in Shoshoni to build a dike on the one end of that pond. And you know how sandy the material is here. We were worried the water was just going to come through it without some kind of liner. And then additionally looked at the pressure dosing system. And at the time, Delron said, and Delron's our wastewater expert, he said, that's going to be one of the biggest pressure dosing systems in the state, if not the tri-region area. It's a huge thing, and it's pushing the top end of that with Shoshoni's population back then. And then there's just some different things with that site that it was going to make it cost more than what the town had. The town had a grant, but a good portion of that grant got used up using a design that wasn't able to be done. And then by that time the funding had kind of shrunk, so there wasn't enough based on what we were coming up with to do the actual projects that needed to get done. So the DEQ kind of didn't like our letter, didn't like our answer, and said, well, you need to look and talk to somebody else and get a different answer. And that's what you got. And so that different answer is what you got out there right now, which is that pressure dosing system that is obviously not functioning and has some problems. So 2014, 2016, HDR was hired by the town to help with those two sewer replacement projects. We placed a heck of a lot of sewer in town, and I enjoyed every bit of it and enjoyed building relationships here and learning more about the town. In sometime between 2017, 2019, that pressure dosing system was completed. And here we are today, 2024, with ongoing issues with that pressure dosing system. Are there any questions? I don't want to just talk. If you guys have any questions about what's kind of happened. And,
See, I reviewed some of the minutes of the meeting back then. I went back and checked our old minutes, and I did catch where the recommendation was, one of the recommendations was to look at trying to get it reclassified back.
yeah.
Where are we at today with where we're sitting with EPA and everything else? And
It's something that could maybe get looked at again, but it's still gonna be, unless you got a pot of money sitting aside to litigate that, I still think it's gonna cost some money, and those dollars may be harder to get than just building something that works better with what you have now. It's definitely a thing that could get looked at. Cause I don't disagree. I mean, what's happening down in the creek when they were dumping effluent is exactly what they're trying to accomplish up on top. So it always kind of made me scratch my head saying, what are we doing here? But I'm by no means a wastewater expert. I've got people I work with for that. So, but just from common sense sort of standpoint, just
maybe
always made me
back to
wonder.
the original design of a larger evaporating pond that's lined.
There's different things we can look at. That's the benefit of doing a PER.
Right.
We can investigate some of these alternatives and ferret out what might work best. So, based on that, that's kind of why that evaluation's needed. Is obviously that pressure dosing system's been problematic ever since it was installed. Nick was telling me that
I don't think we finished construction on that till 2022, 2021.
No, this is 2020, we did our last, we had our last bill in 2021.
I would say kind of guesstimating because we weren't involved.
Viper was the last bit of that.
I'm just trying to, when we turned it on and did our inspections and running that out.
That was before my time, so it would have been 2019. As it was before April of 2020, I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Before my time, because I didn't have nothing to do with it.
The fact is, was that like less than 4 years? 4 years at most, maybe. I mean, it's not a long
It
time.
wasn't much more before that, so it was right around the time.
And in my understanding, the pumps and stuff have all had to be replaced already, and when the town discharges, they discharge in the winter, which was some of our question with this design. And so what happens when you discharge in the winter? You were telling me you got ice stacked up out there, and it just, because now that they do have the system working, before it would just bubble up in the one place where that one pump was, or that one zone was working.
Right.
And then it would run down, and the town had to cut a collection ditch so it didn't run down into the creek. Now that all of those are working, it builds ice because you're switching between zones, and it just pours, builds ice, freezes, builds ice, freezes. So I think there's some solutions that could maybe be had with that existing system if the town wants to keep trying that. The other thing that we think should happen is just taking a look at those existing lagoons. And I feel like those are probably in need of a condition assessment. It's been a while.
Right.
since the last evaluation. And then the Shoshoni sewer collection system, there's a few priority 2 and priority 3 sewer mains that still need to be replaced.
Correct.
That are kind of the things that we see this PER maybe helping do. And you know, the reason we want to do that is I know that you guys have a goal of trying to make Shoshoni grow, and know you're trying to encourage new housing and get promote businesses to come here. And in order to do that, the town needs to have a functioning and reliable wastewater system. So and the way that one way you can go about doing that is by doing what you're doing, which is a preliminary engineering report. And so the primary goal of that is to basically plan out what kind of projects are out there, figure out what the problems are, make sure that things are built to the way you're planning for growth. And so one thing I wanted to mention about PERs is there's a real standardized format, and that's kind of what's on the side of the screen there, and all those small letters. There's the outline from that URS bulletin. So there's all of those questions we got to answer, from project planning all the way down to selection of an alternative. And then once you do that, you know, there's several steps in that whole situation there.
So each one you gotta have 3 answers, right? If you
Yeah,
do
they
A,
usually
do
like to
B, or
have-
do nothing.
Yeah, they
Correct.
usually like to have at least a couple alternatives and the do nothing alternative.
Right.
So, you know, you go through this effort and they're all real standardized, and, you know, kind of the point of it's to create a master plan for your wastewater systems and all of your different things within that system. The goal of it is to prioritize projects and then get reliable cost estimates for those so that you can budget for those projects.
That's one of the things we've been talking about. Do we need to re-examine our older sewer? Because we have a priority list already. Do we need to reevaluate that?
Well,
What do you think?
Well, that's what the last evaluations for that was done in 2008. So
Right.
who's to say what, you know, what condition those are in, how many of so we'll get
Yes.
to the map, but there's a handful of priority 2s
Yes.
and the rest of it's priority 3. Well, how much of that's now priority 1?
Yeah, well, we was having that exact talk, you know, question whether we shouldn't be looking at that for that exact reason. Yes.
So, and then there was also the 2010 non-discharging lagoon, and as far as I know, and I could be wrong, those are the last times that a report like this has been done for the wastewater system. So, you know, what I do want to say is we have a real successful history of utilizing PERs to help identify funding, and then we've helped our clients complete a lot of those much needed projects because of that. So some of the considerations that we wanted to bring up for the scope and budget, if we are selected, just things that we want to discuss with you are because PERs are very specific and regimented, that scope and cost are kind of dependent on what your end goal is. So if your end goal is just to look at what can we do to fix the pressure dosing system, you can tailor fit that to just do that. But if you also want to take a look at your lagoons and your sewer system, those are things that you know, expand that scope a little bit. So it kind of just depends on what the end goal of the town and what you guys want to, what do you want to get out of this effort? So the pressure dosing system is definitely one of the top things, obviously. And so one of the things that we'd like to do is just review those existing geotechnical reports that were done and see if we need to do any new geotechnical reports. I know when we were looking at this with that pond, there's several places in that field that only had 2-3 feet of cover over bedrock. So if you if these got placed over those spots, that stuff doesn't have anywhere to go except for the surface.
Yes.
Because it's only got a short amount of fill down to the bedrock. The other thing we could do is, so we want to take a look at those reports and see if we can glean some of that information. Or maybe do a new geotechnical report. And maybe it's not even worth the effort. If it's just a matter of we need to put more dirt on top of these. Maybe that just solves the problem, and takes care of having to do that investigation. So the other thing that we could do is an in-depth peer review of the design components and the design for this and go rehash over what was already done. I don't know that that'll, we may find something with the percolation rates in the ground or something. But, I really I don't want to spill the beans, but I kind of think that it's kind of like if you've heard of a sand mound system for a septic. For a leach field.
I've seen septic systems built that way.
You do that when you don't have enough cover.
Correct.
And you build up the mound.
Or if you live on a creek bottom and the water table's too
Right.
high.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So whether water table or whether it's bedrock, whatever it is. So, I mean, that may just be the ticket. But I'd like to, and that'll be part of the, things that we want to discuss. For the lagoons, you could do just a high level condition assessment. We could talk with Mike and say, based on what you guys have seen, what do you feel like the condition of this is? And, we could talk about the liner and the aeration system. And the one thing that we won't be able to figure out is a sludge survey, but I mean, we could do a high level talk, or we could have some added value and actually do a sludge survey, which basically you get a company out there and they take samples and they come up with a guesstimate on how much sludge they think is in the ponds. And so you can have rural water, I think they'll come out and do it for free. But one of the things I've heard is, and it's happened on some projects, is sometimes you don't get very accurate data. And so one of the things that we had happen on a project in Moorcroft is that they had a real simple sludge survey, and it ended up costing an extra $1 million of sludge removal beyond what the original estimate was. Fortunately, RD was, willing to work with the town and had funding, and they covered it all. And so that's the other side of that story, is we were able to work with RD to help that project be successful and not, how are we going to come up with $1 million, So we could do a detailed review of the aeration system, and, some of the things we could do is check the effluent that's there kind of down on the bottom end of that one cell and see if there's different types of aeration systems that might help treat some of that better, or just looking at updating the system to make it work better. The other thing we could look at in a little more detail is just the condition of the liner. And, I can't remember if the liner for this is a synthetic liner, or if it's clay, but, it's something we could find out. And the problem with clay liners is you get vegetation and then those roots grow through it and it starts leaking. And so those are things that we could take a look at. But all of these things are kind of beyond just a high level condition assessment, and things that we'd like to discuss and negotiate. So the next thing I want to talk about regarding that is the collection system. So there's a map up here that I had worked with Mayor Highsmith and Scott Peters in the past, and it shows what's been completed, the things that have the boxes around them. So the boxes in blue were things that were done first off. Those were done previous to HDR doing work. The stuff within the pink boxes and kind of the cyan stuff there, those were the 2014 projects. So everything else outside of that is priority 2 and 3. So I don't points on the stuff in green kind of down here on this end of town is what's remaining for priority 2. There was a couple of extensions of that we at the time decided it doesn't make sense to replace that. So one of them is where your park is now, but all those buildings got torn down. So, when we were talking about it at the time, it was like, unless the developer wants to develop the other side, Well, when they come to develop, let's just have put in sewer. And then, for the other stuff is kind of where the school used to be. So, there is that crossing that I think impacts this building with the highway. But, you know, at the time, when this was kind of, we were looking at this, the school was going away, so the question was, does it make sense to put something in there? So all of the stuff in black is priority 3. From that 2008 report. I'm guessing that a lot of this stuff has changed, but we won't know that unless we do, you know, camera the sewer lines and figure out what shape stuff's in. And so that's something that could happen as part of this, you know, PER, or, you know, maybe the recommendation is to just hold off and wait on that and do it as part of the design project if you decide that you want to do anything here. But you won't know until you know. And so if you want to start prioritizing those now for funding, you got to investigate them.
How much, if any, overlap, I guess, from fire projects that HDR did in the past? If you went to this part, or you did this scope, expanding to this, how much of that would potentially overlap, if any, into not redoing the work that carry over, you've already have information on things like that?
Unfortunately, a lot of what, you know, we do have survey and we have cambered some of the lines, but they were all the lines we replaced. So, you know, the lines that haven't been replaced, we haven't really looked at. I do think that there used to be some VHS tapes that, that those are so old now that, I mean, it's
Be irrelevant.
yeah. First I gotta find a VHS, which I do happen to have, but yeah, so I mean, it's just time, I think, and whether you do it as part of a project or do it now. And we could stick with the map. And, you know, the other thing that we need to talk about is just the capacity and investigation for growth, because Maple Street is the thing that collects all the sewer for all of Shoshoni. And the only thing we've replaced on that is a couple manholes. And there's 2 that we replaced. And so it's a deep line. That one up there by the bus barn was 21, 22 feet deep. So it's a big, deep trench. And to do that project, the nice part about it is we're going to take all the asphalt and it's going to get a new street. But the bad part about that is we're going to take the street and have to put in new asphalt.
I tried to get that in on our West Street project, and I couldn't get that done, but I tried to get that in. So our new sewer line we put in on the west, because it ties in down there, but I wasn't able to get that.
And I think just getting that replaced, you know, if we do want to do that, is the size that's there sufficient for the growth that you're expecting? And that's another big thing that we can take away from this, you know, the PER. And so I think the big thing about that one is just video camera or not, or we can size that line as part of just the PER.
Right.
I think that'll be some of that stuff we have to address in the PER, just as the standard stuff. The other thing to consider is an environmental report. So anytime you go after federal funding, you got to go through this NEPA process. And so RD has a very specific format for an environmental report. And in order to submit a application for doing the next project after the PER, you have to submit the ER with it. And so you don't have to do it right now, but it's going to limit your ability to get RD funds. And if you do it like an SRF project with the state, they have an environmental review process too that can happen as part of the project. Doesn't have to be done right up front, but at some point it's coming. And I think you'll be more successful getting funding if you do it now. And we'd highly recommend doing it now. And HDR, that's one of our guys, it's actually Kendall Vandekamp. He's one of our environmental guys. He's in the back of the report, or in our SOQ. So past PER experience in Wyoming, all of those covers are PERs we've done in the last 1.5 to 2 years. and they're all wastewater PRs, I believe. I'm sure Mike's familiar with some of these, or at least knew that we were working on them. So we've got just different areas for the Northern Arapaho tribe that we worked on stuff. We worked on one with Aaron Martin for the Boulder Flats area, looking at putting in right now that area just has septic systems, so putting in a whole collection system for that entire area, something we looked at. So these are things that we've worked on, and we've done an awful lot of them here recently, so I feel like we've got a pretty dang good idea how to get them done and get them out. So I guess with that, that's kind of what the end of the presentation. I'll just kind of end with maybe some reasons to hire us. I think we've got a pretty extensive background in understanding what's going on out here. We've just our timeline and being here to learn about the town has been helpful, and I think that'll translate to some seamless project delivery, and should help meet the town's goals for schedule, and it'll be helpful and conducive to getting future funding opportunities. You can, because of all of the PRs we've done recently, you can be sure that our technical recommendations will be reliable and accurate. You'll be able to trust that we've got good cost estimates. It's one of the things we like to pride ourselves in, is we don't want to sell a future project short and leave you guys holding the bag. So it's one of the things that we always try to make sure that on that budget end of things, when we're coming up with an estimate, it may seem real high, but that project may not get done for 2 or 3 years. So we want to make sure when you get the go ahead and funding that it covers it. And on the tail side of that, we've got good relationships with RD in case we do need to get more funding. So, and they've been willing to work with us on several occasions on that end. And then finally, just I like working over here, and I like the town, and I enjoy any opportunity I can to be here. So that's all I've got. And if you got questions, just please let me know, and be happy to answer those.
Yeah, of course, depending on the scope, so it could be as little as addressing the initial need of the dowsing system, how to try to figure out if we can make it work, or maybe we don't go, maybe we need to do something different about it. Timeline, you got any kind of reasonable timeline?
I know these usually take a couple months to get done, just with the reviews and getting all the information. And so I know you got another PR coming out for your water project.
Right.
And, my thoughts are, if you run those side by side, a lot of the information that you got to fill in for those overlaps. And so doing one helps do the other. And if you do them concurrently at the same time, I feel like we get these done at least by October, which was the deadline for the water that was in the RFP. If not before that with this one, because it started a little sooner.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking is, that's what we think we could probably get it done. If you think that it needs to be done a little sooner than that, we could push for sure and just get that more.
Okay. The urgency maybe is just trying to make sure we try to look at rural development and or SLIB.
Some of it depends on what you want to do too.
Right, correct.
If you want to do sludge surveys and some of this other stuff, that's going to take time. So
yes,
like if it's just looking at the pressure dosing system, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But what I will say about that is, if you end up wanting to do something with one of the other things I mentioned, you'll have to do another PR.
Right.
Because that one was so focused on one thing.
Sure.
If you spread that out, you can almost come up with like a master plan with a list of projects that are prioritized, and what's the next, I don't know, 5, 10.
What are you saying? Work out a initial PER to look at plan A, and then And we may decide to go to Plan B, just do it sort of sync and move on without doing another PER. Is that what you said? Jan?
No, what I'm saying is,
They said do a PER on like as much as we can, so we don't have to come back and do
So it
it.
becomes like a,
it becomes like a master plan versus just a plan for the pressure dosing. system.
Okay,
They said like,
And you'll
do that.
prioritize what you want done first.
Yeah,
Then when we go to state or
Yeah.
RD and say, right, this is our first project, this is the second project,
you
and
got
the
it.
third
Okay.
project, we never have
throw
the
a
money
wide net
for.
on the PER.
And
Throw it
apply
all-
for all of them at the same time, instead of then you gotta wait, and do another PR
okay, no,
later.
no, okay, yeah.
And then, that pushes being able to do those projects out even further.
Thus generating.
That was what I
hours.
was basically trying to
Well,
say,
and
trying to get
I'd
it.
rather not do that, I'd rather just get.
kind of like we ended up doing with water, how we got all.
Yes.
three projects.
Into one.
Right,
Right.
Three separate projects, but we used the one initial.
You use that same report over and over instead of 3 reports for the same thing.
Correct,
We used the exact.
yes.
And we could attempt to do that from a pretty high level, it's just. The level of detail and information you're gonna get is not gonna be as accurate, not gonna be, is good, so. I know there's a happy balance, a medium somewhere in there, but some of it just depends on what you guys wanna do, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Would you like to send Dwarves and Associates in?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
You want me to stick around, or are you guys gonna do something similar with
Yeah.
this one?
If you, yeah, we'll do something similar. That's our intent. It's up to you.
No,
can call you.
I'll stick around. If you're making a decision tonight, I'll stick around. I don't wanna just cut tail and run. I'm already here. We're having some cussing and discussing, BSing going on out there for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny, we joked about,
Stuff until like.
my marketing coordinator said you should bring like a stack of pizzas and a couple of racks of, 30 racks of, bush lattes. And we'd have a good old time, but I said, that might look like a bribe. And
No,
I'd have to-
no,
I'd
that's
have to
silly.
just kind of like bring them in and set them down. And this is just here, and it just magically appeared sort of thing, but we didn't want to get disqualified. Oh, okay. Did you want me to sign in here? Probably not. It's just maybe a standard thing. Thank you for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're just carrying on. Yeah. A lot to say. Probably sick of you guys like hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Exactly. I'm just there listening.
Well, we ought to get you more involved. We gonna wait for Chris, I assume.
We don't have to.
He doesn't really get a vote.
What's that?
He doesn't get a vote.
I didn't figure it would. He probably gets in on discussion.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What you folks most want to hear about regarding this preliminary engineering report? what's most critical interest to you?
I, you know, part of it, is, you know, we got a dowsing system that's failing. You know, I don't know if repairing the dowsing system and figuring out how to make it work, if that's the proper route to go, or if we have other options that would be better, you know, we don't know. We're hoping some guidance from you. We don't know. One thing we know is what we got stuff with.
Yeah,
Anybody else any input on that?
That's the alligator that is closest to the canoe.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
That's the alligator that's closest to the canoe right now,
yeah,
is the docent.
yeah, good way to put it. Yeah. Okay, well, to start the presentation, once again, I'm Jim Dory. And Jeff, he is with us here this evening and will, but the reason I asked, what are you folks most interested in? That's what I want to hear our discussion to, because this could go on as long or longer than the last interview. Yeah, really good. Unlike the prior project, where we had a specific deadline, we're not, for funding reasons, we're not up against that here. But nonetheless, the regulatory, non-regulatory funding people, RUS have a very clear and specific set of guidelines as to what needs to be incorporated into a preliminary engineering report. And in order to really make the best of that, we believe we're gonna have to have you folks' involvement every step of the way. And we glad to talk more with you on that. But in the handout that Jeff gave you there, lays out the steps that need to be followed for rural utilities. This is RUS, Farmers Home Administration, whatever name you want to give them. But one thing about following these guidelines is that whatever this process develops, it's accepted by the other funding agencies as a way to get to a plan of action, shall we say, to implement whatever project you folks decide upon. And that's one of the principal things that we're going to need to do, and you are as well, as be involved, basically, as I said, every step of the way. Because ultimately, you're going to wind up coming to a conclusion based on various options that we can develop and bring to you. And when you get into wastewater treatment, they're broad and wide. There's a lot of things, particularly in this environment here. Some of them work, and some of them, as you already know, don't work. So it's not without. Don't just follow the process and okay, here's our solution. You're going to be intimately involved in it, as is your constituents. So in the project planning, which is the first step, we're going to have public involvement from the very beginning. What does the public want to see? What's their greatest concerns, and what do they want to see? What do they not want to see? On your And obviously, first thing that you need to have is a system that is gonna work and work well for you. And serves your population at an affordable cost. Is you can come up with everything from simple to magnanimous. And it goes anything from perhaps wastewater from a lagoon to a full-blown mechanical plant. And there's, as you already know, there's a wide variety of results that can come from either one of those systems. And you can go from anything from poor to horribly expensive. And that has a lot of bearing on your community and your constituents. So kind of stepping through things, rural utility services has a very clear outline of what it is that they want, and that's pretty well demonstrated here in the wastewater PER handout that we gave her. So let's focus on the things that are most concerned to you folks. So if you wouldn't mind point that out, would you want to give your view on that, Mike? You've been in this business longer than most. But critically, we want public involvement all the way along. But Bob, do you have a sense of what is most important to you?
I would like to see a master plan for water, sewer for the town for, say, projections for the next 20 years.
Okay, and this is gonna deal with sewer. not
Yeah,
water.
just sewer, okay, yeah, but we've had master plans set up for economic development and stuff like that. I'd like to see one done for each part of the town,
Right.
or, you know, so. Do we need sewer lines replaced? Do we need to have, is the building for the lagoons where all the sewers run through, is that adequate? The pumps in there are adequate? All of that. I'd like to see a master plan,
Okay.
for 20 years from now.
And, okay. 20-year horizon.
Yeah.
That's that's pretty standard. Or I would say 20 years, pretty standard. You can have it extend a lot longer than that with good planning and good input from you folks and your constituents. One of the main functions of wastewater treatment is health and sanitation. That alone is not what you're dealing with here. We can get into that. But the existing facility needs to be evaluated, and that's the second thing on the list that you got there. What do you have? How well is it working? You already know of at least 2 disposal systems that don't work, right? Dousing system, and you had at one time a sprinkler system to get rid of the wastewater after it was treated down there, and that did not work well. That was in the mid to late 70s. And so we know 2 things that don't work. With some good serious planning, maybe we find a third one that will work. one thing that, is always a problem, or a challenge, let's say, is that, you got ever-changing regulations. Until you had the killifish in Poison Creek, you didn't have a compliance problem. Now you do. And how do you address that? And it's not something that's easily answered. Because the regulatory agencies that are gonna be involved passing judgment on whatever system it is that you folks select. And as I mentioned a minute ago, that could go from anything from poor to luxurious in terms of cost. But you've got to have it to where it's affordable by your local constituents. And so, in our thought, you're gonna have to come up with a master plan that is incrementally expandable or changeable. But it's gonna have each change or each increment has to be such that it's affordable by the constituents here in town. What can they afford to pay for wastewater treatment? Same question you got on water. How much can they afford and how many people do you have to contribute to that overall cost? And that's a serious issue here. And trying to target what you can afford against the moving target of changing regulations is a challenge. And so I think you've got a target population of 1,200 people is what I think we heard. Is that right from Mayor Joel?
That would be nice. We're hoping the next 10 years that we think population between 800 and 1,000 is very attainable.
Yeah. But you're gonna handle that many people, you're gonna have to have something that meets regulations a lot more assuredly than what you're dealing with right now.
Correct.
So, anyway, as I said, you can go anything from fairly simple lagoon system, which perhaps can be made to make regulations to expensive mechanical plant, which we know can be, like Riverton has, that can be made to meet discharge parameters, but can local people afford it?
It might be cost prohibitive is what you're alluding to.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Got to
So-
come up with a design that the town of Shoshoni, we may want a Cadillac, but we might have to buy a Chevy. Hope we don't have to buy a Ford.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's, so you've gotta, so say this is gonna be quite publicly interactive as to what you come up with, why you come up with this decision that you do. But ultimately, you gotta handle more people than you got right now and do it at a rate that those people can contribute to it in a manner that doesn't leave them without money for the grocery bill. So there's a number of alternatives that can be considered, and if you got anything that you'd like to add to that, bring it out and we'll try and discuss it as best we can. So obviously the lagoon system is one of the things that is most attractive because it's relative or comparatively low cost, can be lower maintenance, but you're missing the ammonia target. And there's one thing that the lagoons don't do is treat ammonia. you know, I don't know what system does. And that doesn't mean that you can't be in compliance. And there's a couple systems, and I'll get into it if you want to, but there's a couple systems around the state that are lagoon systems that do meet discharge standards, or go ahead, Chris.
I was just, no objection.
Make sure I'm paying attention.
I stole his, we're sharing a.
Oh, okay. But there are a few lagoon systems around the state that do meet, and it's communities about your size. One was that comes to mind is Mapitzi. They don't have any discharge. So they don't have to meet compliance. And that was kind of what you're shooting for with the dowsing system. That at least didn't work where it was cited. Another one that operates with minimal discharge or very little compliance issues we're aware of is Burlington. What can we learn from them? I'd like to go find out. And so in terms, and that's part of what the alternative selections is gonna engage you in, is what can be found that works. And I can't stand here and tell you we know the answer. And that's what the alternative evaluation will come to, but all of you are going to get to be involved in that decision. So, and then you're going to have to address environmental impacts in those alternatives. And that can be, well, you know what it amounts to basically. You gotta consider several things, not just what sort of fish species you got, but how does it affect Boysen Reservoir and, you know, basically everything. Beyond that, you're gonna have to have cost estimates for the systems that the alternatives that you want to study. Where is it going to land in terms of affordability to you? And then you're going to go through the process of, once you get all that information, you know, what are the alternatives, first of all? What do they cost? What's their affordability? What is the annual cost per household? And all those things got to be brought back to you. And you lucky devils are going to get to make the decision. So, and that's the alternative selection, and if you care to, I can go through all the whole process and what needs to be considered under each one of the topics listed here, and that's pretty instructive, really. Then we'll come up with proposed alternative, recommended alternative. And we need to go through at least one public hearing at that point. But I would suggest that you have a public hearing basically anytime there's new information brought to you as council to be presented to you to be contemplated as you evaluate heard. Because ultimately it's folks out there that are going to pay for it. And you and whoever is sitting in your chairs are gonna be the ones, 5 and 10, 20 years from now, that are going to have to make decisions of, are we gonna fund this? How closely is it meeting, regulations? And we all, as experience tells you, that's a moving target. So, and then, the final, once the selection of alternatives is made, then you gotta come up with an annual operation maintenance budget. And that's gonna give you a lot of information about what the public that you're serving can afford or willing to afford. And then there'll be conclusions and recommendations. Basically pulling everything together that you can then submit to the funding agencies to start the process of designing the facility and getting ready to bid and implement. Okay, that's basically what I give you a real brief overview really of the process.
Jim, I got a question. You presented us a timeline. Is that sort of the basic timeline if we're looking at, say, just addressing the dowsing system and not expanding the PER to include more?
I wouldn't say so, no. I think we already know the dowsing system, at least as it was proposed, didn't work.
Okay, yeah, correct.
And we don't know why it didn't work, or I don't. So you're gonna have, I think, to determine what might have been the failure point for one of them. You go out there and do some serious drilling, find out what the soil profile is out there and how much water can that site accept. Right now, from what we have learned, what little we've learned, I should say, the dowsing system, that's almost the last thing we want to suggest to you. And if you're gonna treat ammonia, the lagoon system would good in. So you can think with some what's called tertiary treatment, you might be able to accomplish with the lagoon. So there's a lot of things to be looked at and weighed and figure out what makes most sense. Jake, what do you,
Oh, I was just,
what do you mind?
nothing in particular. I was just listening to what you're saying.
Well, it's freezing up.
Yeah.
So that tells me it's probably not deep enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may have bedrock under that won't allow it to be deep enough. I don't know don't know the issues. I don't know. A plant, to build a plant could be very costly. I don't know, but that could be costly, more costly, and maybe something we can't afford, but maybe that's our only option. I don't know. Mike, what do you think? You're an expert here. For us.
Well, I was thinking about getting evap ponds,
Yeah,
and then putting in something at the front to catch all the solids. Like a lift station, right before
Yes.
the diversion box over there. Put a lift station in there, so you got a basket or something to catch solids that you can
Sure,
clean every day.
collect all that stuff, of course.
Yeah,
and goes
because
in the
right now
treatment.
it's floating. It's floating all over.
Yeah, right,
It's looks pretty rugged.
no sense.
And it's, I mean, the solids is pretty, the sludge is pretty thick.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, we have a hard time regulating it because it starts to settle in front of
right in front of discharge, yeah, the intake
Every
pipe,
now and then Mike has to open them up to let it flush. But
yeah,
we've tried a few things, we've tried moving it, but it just
yeah,
falls back in.
you can't push it completely out of the way,
It just, there was some bugs in it next,
yeah.
and so bugs in it, it might take some of that sludge out.
No, when, I'll digress a minute, but I was working on a lagoon in Delta, Colorado when I was a few decades younger, let's say. They had a fruit processing plant in Delta. And what's at the end of the inlet pipe? A whole mountain of peach pits.
Sure.
And the contractors, well, let's wait till things kind of freeze up, which it was late in the year, wells into the first of the new year. Then we'll push it out of there with the cat. Well, the guy got out there and started pushing a little bit, and he broke through. And oh gosh, and the odor just about did him.
You don't get that cold in Delta.
No.
Too close to Grand Junction, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's not a light comment by any means, because you got all the stuff that comes in and what do you do with it? How do you handle it? How do you treat it? How do you handle it? Or how do you keep it from getting in there in the first place? You know,
Then we
like-
had better aeration system too.
oh yeah, yeah,
That one is all, I think it's all looking part,
right.
which all the air is not getting out there.
No,
If
it's,
we had better aeration, we'd have a lot more evaporation to it.
yes, right. And aeration systems all have their own peculiarities or weak points, I should say, that can give you fits as time goes on. And so, you know, there's numerous different systems, everything from the floating egg beater type thing, that sprays water, throws water out, to the buried or one. Well, he's got one. I can think of. Anyway, that has orifices through a hose, basically. You lay the hose along the bottom of the pond and let the bubbles rise to the surface. They all have their various efficiencies and so forth. And you need to look at all that sort of thing to find out what is going to work best for you. And they all have different efficiencies and different altitudes and everything else. So it's not an easy question to answer, but none of these things are.
Do you think, Jim, do you think we need to look at any other of our sewer problems or potential problems? We haven't, like a lot of our sewer lines are relatively old. We haven't looked at them in years, but
Right.
we had them prioritized, but it's been quite a while ago.
Okay. Those can be looked at if that's to be included in the scope of work. But from my limited understanding right now, the basic issue that you're up against is meeting discharge
Right.
parameters. And so whatever's going on out in the collection system as a whole isn't gonna change your
Not change that.
influence your discharge parameters.
Would there be any efficiencies if we expanded the parameters a little bit and including investigating some of our older lines that we'd already prioritized 10 years ago or longer?
Yeah, you can include that into the study if you want, you know, if that's something that you as a group want to look at, yes.
We've been talking
look
about,
at
because
it.
it's been a long time since that's
Yeah.
been done.
Right.
I don't know if there's any efficiencies of them trying to include that in one PER instead of spreading it out over
Yeah, you can cover just about any set of topics you want to. And what we had kind of puzzled through here,
Right,
mostly is trying to get you into compliance.
right, okay.
But that doesn't mean that has
So
to be.
you're addressing the alligator that's closest to the canoe.
I hope so.
Okay,
You better be.
okay.
Yeah. I don't want Jake tipping the canoe over, you know. But no, yeah, sure. And if that's something that is important to you folks, let's get it included into the PER. And that may help somewhat in terms of gaining regulatory compliance. But it's what you're facing mostly is right now, from what we understand, is getting rid of the ammonia. So that you can discharge it to live water without EPA or DEQ or both looking at you.
Where we don't have that hellfish or whatever is giving us issues, correct?
Right. Well, without getting into discussion about it, ammonia comes, its source really is urine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can't sort it out at the head of the system like cleaning the trash out of the system. So it requires a more intensive sort of treatment to get rid of it. If you can figure out a way, as they had a couple other small communities that I mentioned, can replicate or how they treat it or handle it,
Right.
then you get rid of the problem of discharging it back to Poison Creek. I'm not going to say that is going to be the objective of what we'd like to see you do. But if you can accomplish it, that answers a whole bunch of issues for you. But, and those systems, the ones that get by without having to do discharge reports all the time, you know, the only ones that I know of right now are Matiti and Burlington. And I'd like to search through the rest of the state and see if there aren't places that have come across a solution that isn't widely publicized, let's say. Because, you know, the first plan of attack on something like that is study the things that are probably most obvious in the industry. A lagoon system, sprinkler irrigation, which works fine, but you got to store the darn stuff for 5 to 6 months out of the year, and then get it spread out over the remaining months. That's not easily done necessarily. It's less expensive than a full-blown mechanical plant. And I'm probably getting too deep into the woods, but those are the things that the preliminary engineering report should be addressing for you, is let you sort things out as best you can.
Okay.
That way.
Anybody else have any questions for Jim? Jeff, got anything you want to add, or do we got any?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Sorry.
But no, have center stage here. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, we were both kind of very interested in your current system, hoping that it was gonna work. But not very many people, I'm guessing no one you've talked to today has been surprised that it didn't work.
No, I don't.
So,
I can say that I wasn't very surprised it didn't work either.
Yeah. So, and the last thing your community needs is someone to try another experiment. So,
Okay,
Yeah, you've gone through two of them now.
yeah,
With land application. Well, through two of them, really, land application.
yeah,
And dosing. And we ought to try something
Sure.
different next time.
Yep.
So. Jamie, what's your thoughts?
I have none.
very good. Anybody have
Mike,
anything else?
What about you?
well, I'm just listening.
I'm just there. Yeah,
I
sure,
appreciate
sure,
the presentation from both of you.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
I said, I appreciate the
Yeah,
presentation. You brought us some pretty good points I'd like to add, and I appreciate it.
If you
You
wanna.
tell it a lot of thought.
Yeah, if you wanna look at the collection system, that can be part of it too, and maybe should be. We were thinking more in the lines of getting the end of compliance. Or getting it to where the regulators aren't on your back.
Correct.
You know, that's no fun for anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna have to go get this, yeah. Do I want to or not?
Yeah, I'll wake him up. I said I had a timeline. I didn't say we were gonna stick to it.
And you had to pick a day that I had to get up at 5.
Actually, you guys picked this day. It wasn't me.
My
Well-
kid's gonna be back from Big Piney before I even get home.
You driving by himself?
No, he's at school track meet.
Oh, this is a bus.
Yeah,
At least decent weather
yeah,
compared to last week. In the track meet,
yeah. I know last year they just kept canceling all of them.
I know.
That getting him on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning.
He's big enough to get on the bus by himself.
Well, I gotta get him up and get him motivated.
No, usually you work road track,
Yeah,
your responsibility.
yeah, and he's good about it. He
Yeah.
really is.
I've seen that about.
I thought I heard Tammy saying she's open for George council meeting.
Yeah. They didn't listen.
They didn't listen to you too well.
Well, you can remedy it, really.
No, it's too late.
Yeah,
Too late.
we're beyond that.
Please proceed.
Well, thank you, Mayor Highsmith and council members. So my name is James Bruff, and I'll let you know that recently I changed hats. I worked for the state government for about 2 decades here now. So I was with DEQ as the Northwest District Engineer, but recently I was recruited by some former coworkers to join the Y2 team consultants. So which they have the offices in Cheyenne and Jackson, and I'm based here in Fremont County. But yeah, when I saw this, and first of all, I was just going to say, so I've been involved with water and wastewater projects for 2 decades. Before that, that was kind of my emphasis, was water and wastewater projects. But I've been around the block. I've been to all your neighbors. I've been to the wastewater lagoon facilities, and my family, when I guess when they were young, they hung out with me too as well. But also on the team we have Lou Harmon. He's been Lou Harmon and Rich Kripe, and probably between the 3 of us, we've probably seen perhaps almost all of the small wastewater communities that serve the towns and cities in Wyoming. So we've kind of seen what works and what doesn't work, and so forth. So we have some background there. So Shoshoni definitely has had its challenges, like discharge into Poison Creek. You go back a few decades and it was a class 4 water, so you didn't have to clean it up very much. But in the last couple of decades, the classification of Poison Creek has been upgraded twice. And each time that happens, it becomes harder, more stringent to comply. And so here of late, it's now we'll call it just a class 2. And so you have a strict ammonia standard. And a lagoon facility in this situation, really, it's tough to meet that ammonia standard, because you don't have the benefit of dilution. If you go to Du Bois or other facilities, their ammonia standard is much higher because they get to count dilution. Poison, this system, yeah, you can't. In the past, sometimes with your flows there, you could hold the stream and not discharge for periods of the year. And so probably going back a decade or so, Lou Harmon and others were trying to look at, okay, are there non-discharging options? Can we get away from these tight regulations? Because EPA and others have been pushing the nutrients, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and that. And small towns simply, you can't go afford some of these mechanical plants. It's going to be cost prohibitive. We've kind of looked at these options and think, can we find an economical solution for these small towns? And so my colleague Lou Harmon, he's been successful at several communities. There's Chugwater, Lingle, some others where we say, okay, let's see if we can do a non-discharge. But then that means we have to kind of consider like a water balance, considering, okay, how much water, how much wastewater is going down to the lagoons? Can there be beneficial use? We can allow some infiltration. Several years ago at this, one of the previous
operators was asking, well, could we just evaporate all the water, use the sun? And that does work at some communities. You have Matiti, Cali, they're able to, they have 3 lagoon cells, and they have a long-term contract where they can irrigate during the summer and fall time and lower the levels and have some wintertime storage. So they've been successful at that. Matiti, they have large lagoon cells and they've been able to retain. There's also a few other communities Franny and that. So life is simple. It's a lot simpler if you don't have a discharge. So Shoshoni's situation, you probably don't have the option of just evaporation. One of your challenges is you have the winter bleed flows. So your wastewater flow rate is higher in the wintertime than it is in the summer because we have some shallow sewer and probably water lines that probably need to be addressed. So you're kind of looking at, well, so we have this drain, you have your 2 lagoon cells and you have your pressure dose drain field. And that pressure dose drain field that had a design capacity of about 40,000 gallons per day on that. Problem was when that was constructed, well, first you were dealing with a contractor out of state. The money was spent. Basically, the engineering money was spent on that out of the state consultant, and then you had a local engineer who came and kind of did it for a much reduced price of a pressure dose drain field. Then you had the contractor, but there was no money for kind of oversight. And kind of what happened is, well, you have, first of all, some of the native soils out there, you have kind of a silty loam. It does percolate, and we're hoping that kind of migrate off site. And so they constructed these they built up the pressure dose drain fields is what we call them. So they receive the effluent, and the contractor kind of got into some shale, and that was compacted within the drain field. So shale is kind of a clay on that, so it doesn't absorb water too well. So overall, the current drain field doesn't perform as what it was intended to. So we were hoping for a facility that could receive 40,000 gallons per day. It probably only accepts maybe 5,000 to 10,000. So you're currently, like in the past when I've been here, when I had my different hat on, you're running at maybe 40 or 60,000 gallons per day. So we're just looking at alternative means. It's okay if we can look for a simple solution where you're not always under EPA's watch, because you will have a strict ammonia standard, and if you just put the existing lagoon facility, you'll be out of compliance most of the year. So that's never fun. With a pressure dose drain field, it's what they call the underground injection control permit. It just means you have a large leach field. They do have a little bit more monitoring, but it's simplified. You have less. It's much easier to meet, and it's a more simple solution. There's also some communities, for example, Chugwater. They says, okay, we have some track. We use this, and Shoshoni tried it in the past too, I believe, kind of with the school. It says, okay, can we irrigate? Use some of this treated wastewater. Can we grow some vegetation? Rely upon some evapotranspiration. So there's some of that work kind of has been done. Part of the challenge is it's relatively easy to address your wastewater flows while it's warm. You have the evaporation and things can infiltrate and so forth. When it's colder, then you have to have some wintertime storage. And the other part of Shoshoni's problem is your wastewater flow is higher during the winter time. Because we don't want to freeze any of our shallow sewer or water lines, so we have a stream of water flow. So maybe part of the solution is, well, can we look at our sewage collection system? Can we identify any problem areas? Could those be fixed? Are there alternative ways? So it kind of maybe a two-phase or two different areas to consider, kind of with the evaluation. So I guess with my team, or with Lou and Rich particular, I guess this is a project that I personally have followed. I became acquainted with the wastewater lagoons first in 2006. When I was kind of looking back, I had inspection reports. I think I had one in 2010, 2013, 2021. And I was also trying to look at, okay, what's our flows and what's the character, how strong is that wastewater after it's leaving the second lagoon? Because if you get too much algae or something like that, you could gum up a drain field to extent, but making sure that has proper treatment. But again, we're trying to target an economical solution. If you're to discharge to Poison Creek, you may be looking at some kind of mechanical plant, or some enhanced. Your cost will be going up on the discharge. So we're trying to keep it on the simple, economical side of things. So, like with wastewater lagoon facilities, like aeration, just aeration can be a part, like bacteria. I'm probably getting into the details more than necessary, but I might just kind of conclude that I think there's two of us in particular that we're familiar with probably most of the wastewater lagoon facilities in the state of Wyoming. We not only do we see the beginning product, but we see how lagoons perform decades afterwards, and we've seen what works and what doesn't work. So I personally have seen a couple of projects that have gone sideways, or a project within this county where it was actually performing worse after the upgrade. So for that, and this is a particular project that I saw, and I thought I want to go after because I'm familiar with it on that. And
I have a question for you, James.
Sure.
You talked out, and I remember you talked about irrigation. I know at one time we irrigated what we call Rock Park, and the softball field from our sewer lagoon.
Sure. And so, yeah, that can be an option. So currently the city of Riverton does that. They have a mechanical plant, oxidation ditch, and that you have different, you want to treat it to a certain standard. Like sometimes it might go through UV, or if you have an isolated, it depends upon public accessibility on to what degree do you have to treat that. If you were to sprinkle or irrigate areas within your own property, if there's no or limited public access, then you don't have to treat it to the same degree. Cody, they have wastewater lagoon facilities. They have aeration. It does, but they send some of their wastewater to the riverside. There's a near adjacent cemetery that they irrigate. And so their flows, they're able to reduce their flows significantly. So wastewater facilities, EPA has a way, says, okay, if your wastewater flow exceeds 1 million gallons per day, we're going to classify you as a major, and you have more monitoring requirements. It's going to cost you more. So Cody was successful in saying, okay, we're going to use some of this wastewater for beneficial use. We'll become a minor. It's a win-win situation for them. So if you're, so we're trying to find, okay, let's say a long-term solution that the town of Shoshoni can afford. And can we find some beneficial uses? And that has Lingle, Chugwater. There's a couple other towns where we've been successful with that. So
We would also maybe, we're all, in the next 10 years, we're hoping to have a population 800 to 1,000.
yeah, you're about 600 now.
Near that.
You've kind of gone up and down.
Yeah, we estimate that that be near 600.
593 when I actually counted.
Right, so I
Yeah,
mean, that's near 600,
Yeah, sure.
so near 600.
Yeah, and so Shoshone, there's other improvements. I mean, like you don't have an influent bar screen, so any trash, there is trash that gets into your sewage collection system. You could, like I was working with another consultant, colleague, but the town of Burlington, they have a similar challenge. So, okay, we're discharging, there may be about 300. And initially the consultant says, well, can we do like a mechanical bar screen? But we don't have the money to house it. It's going to be outside. I says, no, I don't like that for a small town because it looks nice for maybe 5 years, but then who knows if it's going to be functioning
Right.
After that. But so they kind of went with a simple bar screen scenario, a dual purpose. It was kind of modeled after what they have up in Worland, where you do have to do some maintenance, but let's keep things on the simple side. Because you could spend, the sky's the limit on how much you could spend.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any of that infrastructure we can use that used to service rock part.
But-
Maybe.
Yeah, another thing is sometimes this project if like on a non-discharge option, it's good to, let's say, have an audit on your water. What's your water use, your wastewater flow? So all we have right now is a effluent weir to monitor. Okay, what's our flow rates going out to our leach field, drain field? It's kind of interchangeable. And so the town of Shoshone doesn't have a good feel for how much water actually goes out. We have water use records. You can kind of use that can kind of mirror image, but sometimes cleaning the garbage or catching the garbage before it goes into your lagoons is definitely a good thing. So you don't, because that's very expensive if you have to go try to clean it all out afterwards. You probably still do because it's been that way for decades.
Was that what you suggested, Mike?
Flow meters. There's Burlington. So the town of Burlington, they have a project where they're doing a kind of a dual, a dual system, simple bar screen where you can have some redundancy, if you will. So if one kind of plugs up, you have an overflow, but it still has to be maintained. But they were also installing some flow meters. So we know where we're at. If we don't quantify what our flows are, it's hard to design around that.
Do you feel there may be some efficiencies, or we haven't looked at our sewer lines for a lot of years? Haven't cambered or anything. We do have some that was classified over 10 years ago in different needs of repair. Do you see any, if we do that with looking at that, or that
I think
do some good, or
I think it would definitely be worthwhile to have a review. So I live in Lander. And so several years ago, what I'm going to say is I was looking at the different communities. I was seeing what the flow rates, the wastewater flow rates are per capita. So that's how you can do a apples to apples comparison. And so Landers also has wastewater challenges and so forth. But what I found out, I quickly identified that there were 3 communities in the Northwest that had severe infiltration and inflows into the sewage collection system. That just means you have to build your wastewater treatment system bigger. So the 3 communities were Basin, Byron, and Lander. So Jackson was one of them. And so the city of Lander It says, let's see if we can come up with some infiltration. Let's see if we can reduce that wastewater flow. Because like you go back the year 2010, like when you have some of the range or so forth, like Lander, your base flow rate was maybe 1 million gallons per day. Some of that was just groundwater seeping into your sewage collection system. And then when they turn on the irrigation ditches and that, it bump it up to 3 MGD, million gallons per day. And then when you have a storm event, like you get, it jumped up to 10 and so forth. So you want to control, you don't want all that groundwater going into your wastewater lagoon system. It's just going to flush it out, and you're not really treating to you've compromised your system. So yeah, I firmly believe that it is good to look upstream. Say, okay, can we fix that? And basically I've told Basin kind of the same thing. They wanted to go in and rebuild the wastewater lagoon facility. It says you need to control your consider your hydraulics. Now in Shoshoni's case, I don't think you have a problem with groundwater. Just sometimes you have a higher wintertime flow rate.
Right.
And so if you could reduce that flow rate some to a degree, then you don't have to build your wastewater treatment facility as big.
Sure.
So like with the drain field, can we go in, maybe redevelop or expand that drain field to have a larger capacity? Yes, one could, but maybe we could consider upstream too. Is there a way to minimize all that wastewater that's coming down to your lagoon facility? So if you have a bathtub that's overflowing, maybe you look at the faucet that's coming in.
Time frame. Got any ideas on what we're looking at time frame? If we're looking at, if what we got if we're looking at just the lagoon, how we're gonna dousing system, how we're gonna attack that, and I don't know, like maybe worth looking Cameron, looking at our other sewer, and maybe looking at some of that either also, but
yeah.
sort of time.
So you have records, you have your as-built drawings. Let's say, so one could camera, and you probably have a record of your sewage collection systems. So I've dealt with a couple different operators. There's Bart Humphreys, there's and Bud.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get I'd hear different things from them, but I have about 4 or 5 inspection reports. 4 has shown 5, I think. It sounds like there were some areas that were kind of known, says, okay, this is problematic. We're getting excess flow here. So we're kind of looking at, okay, do we know where our freezing problems are? Can we pinpoint it? And is there a solution to that? And that's, so your sewer lines, like just what's the depth? What's the depth of bury? Do we have appropriate depth? Because some places you might have some shale or so forth, and then and then also, do you have appropriate slope? Because so you're kind of looking, is it sometimes if your sewer line is flat or even have an adverse grade, it's going to puddle, and that's where you're going to have your freezing problem. On that, running water doesn't freeze, or you need to keep it in motion. But if it's stagnant, you're going to get a problem. So do we have? So can we pinpoint? Can we identify some problem areas? So I think kind of maybe one approach. So with my other hat, like last year, I was asking, okay, what are our flows? I was trying to figure out what is the capacity of that drain field. Mm-hmm. We had a design capacity of 40,000 gallons per day, but we know that was compromised because of the way it was constructed.
Correct.
Doesn't work when you put clay in the drain field, basically. And so, yeah, Terry Zink was involved with that project, and he ran several PERT tests and says, yeah, this is a lot slower. So I think some of the you start out with the information that you already have, like your water use. It'd be beneficial if you had some means to monitor, to know actually what's going into your sewage lagoon. But having a flow meter, that your V notch wear on the outflow, that's kind of a hit or miss. It was set up to do some readings, but it's not functional really. Flow meters are more accurate than the V notch. Yeah, we kind of went out there and three of us were out there. We had a stopwatch and 5-gallon buckets and so forth. And you can have different models, empirical models, and say, okay, how is this performing? And so a flow meter is more accurate. But I would start kind of with, so you can start with the information that you have and kind of go from there. And yeah, or do you have some needed upgrades? Yes, you do. It would be better if you like influent bar screen. Probably if you had a flow meter measuring what your flow is, you'd have a better handle on your system.
Any other questions for James? Got any questions?
Kind of even covered, I think, for me.
What would you recommend if we say we wanted a 20-year program, long-term project for a sewer system, wastewater system? What would you do for that? What would you say we need to study in this for this town?
20-year forecast.
Yes.
So is probably, population forecast or what?
Say based on population, projected population growth. What would we do for a PER?
Well,
For the next, like a master plan.
Yeah. So like on a master plan, so I've seen plenty of master plans, and so I've seen, for example, Du Bois. I've seen mayors or sometimes you can come up with a population projection. Sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't pan out the way it's projected. Most of the time, it's just projection. Does it actually go that way? You're probably lucky if it actually. So yeah, you always want to design to have some elbow room. You want to make sure you're sizing large enough. I think Shoshoni is you're still in a situation where you need to take some baby steps. You need to get, like, if I were to ask, what are your flows today? Could you tell me?
He could. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's definitely some steps to kind of take it. So yeah, we could go there's different types of population projections. You'd want to make sure, okay, so we want project something that's affordable for the town. We're myself and team partners like Lou, we're trying to say, can we find a non-discharging option so you can not have all the monitoring required, and you're gonna that's our hope, is we're trying to simplify your system. We because unfortunately the regs are what you are. Your Poison Creek used to be a class 4 stream, then was bumped up to 3. Then at that time they added chlorination. When it's bumped up to a 2AB stream, that's when the ammonia standard came into place. And that's where and with that standard, you're out of compliance probably 10 months out of the year. When you discharge, you're probably in compliance when the water's warm, maybe July, August, and that's it. So it's kind of unfortunate. If you had a big river to discharge, you'd be better off. Well, I mean, I'm just, that's just the way.
Do we think this is a 3 month PER, 6 month? What do you think?
Oh, well, with the PER,
Yeah, just the
um,
PER.
yeah, I think, I definitely think within 6 months, perhaps less, because I've followed it. I'm familiar with it, and I actually have already done some groundwork on it. So I have but there's a couple, I kind of, your situation is kind of tough on your ammonia limit. And so like you have a more stringent ammonia standard than Lander, Du Bois, and other communities, just because the way the regulations are set up, that you can, they're concerned about the ammonia killing fish. In this case, you have the Plains killifish that game and fish planted 30 years ago for mosquito abatement. So, but that's
They don't work.
yeah, I've been down there. The mosquitoes are still pretty active. So, but I was going to say I've looked at it. I've looked at Shoshoni. I'm not here all the time, but I've looked at it kind of. I've taken some good looks. I've put some spreadsheets together, but probably since 2010. So it's not. We're familiar with the challenges, and then I have a coworker who's looked at the eastern side of the state, and they've had some successful projects. And if we cannot discharge the surface water, that's going to simplify the town's life. So that's our ultimate goal on that. You can be like a Green River. Green River's they're getting an oxidation ditch, the tune of maybe $50 million. Of course, they're bigger than Shoshone, but it's a lot of money. Aeration costs are high. So Lander, they upgraded their aeration system and needed it. So when you discharge to surface water, you have to do a better job cleaning your wastewater than if you can find another option. It costs to treat. It's not cheap.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for James? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Threw it the wrong way.
Well, gentlemen, there again, we had a very, very close ballot, but HDR came out with the highest score. There again, this is all done independently off your interview and your presentation. And everybody scored it separately, and then we tallied and came up with a score. So we will start here relatively soon and negotiating and coming up and discussing with HDR and see if we come to an agreement. If not, then we'll call who came in second place. That's standard, but that's
I make a motion that the town enter negotiation with HDR and the sewer PER.
been motion by Councilman Stetler. We enter a negotiation with HDR.
And I'll second it.
Been seconded by Councilwoman Hartke. Any further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All the same, motion passed. Can I have a motion for adjournment? Been moved by Councilman Stetler,
I'll second it.
a second by Councilman Hartke. Any further discussion? None being, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed on the affirmative, approximately, 11 after 9?
9:12.